Today, I feel compelled to speak about making decisions from a place of fulfillment. Once you overcome your fear of your decisions and their ramifications, and you're no longer afraid of your fate or your karma, how do you decide to take an action? And you realize that many people use fear as a guardrail. And when you don't have that anymore, you're no longer bound by prevention. But yet you still have to make decisions. You have to restrict yourself in a different way. So we're going to talk about making decisions from a place of fulfillment. If you're curious as to how someone navigates the world once they don't have any fear, stick around and I'll explain. So, as a spirit, you are everywhere, and the universe is your home. And there is no time. But not in the sense that I'm running out of time. There's just no urgency anymore. There's no emergency. And truly, there is no time like the present, and you can live like there is no tomorrow. And that's what it feels like to transcend your fear. And so you have to put filters. So if you're just a big, boundless entity with no borders, which is really truthfully who we are as spirits, to fully participate in the world, you still have to restrict where you're going to be. A human being is a local thing. So you have to be standing, lying, or sitting somewhere, although technically you're just floating around in the middle of nowhere. But as we roam the earth and make a habitation for ourselves, we have to learn how to voluntarily restrict ourselves. Now, when someone comes to a spiritual understanding of themselves, they realize they're everything. And I love that example of Ramana Maharshi, who had this colossal shift and realized his everythingness and took his clothes off. He got naked and just lived. He realized that he was the environment. He had no shame. Although his advisors at least convinced him to wear a loincloth to avoid arrest for indecent exposure. Of course, the entire universe is indecent exposure. The animals don't have any clothes. The trees don't have any clothes. They just hanging out. And for some reason, it's taboo for the human being to just hang out in the Garden of Eden and be in their paradise. So we have the taboo of clothing and the pretense of the ego, like costumes. You have to play the game. So once you realize and you begin to see through the game that it's just this pretense, you can't break the rules or you'll get put in jail for indecent exposure, but you want to push the boundaries. What you want to do is expose the naked soul, the pure heart, and maybe even wear a loincloth or, strip down to the to the bare essentials that we are indecently exposed. And it's okay, right? You don't have to be fearful of your form. In the same way that this little squirrel over here is just completely naked and he's got a body full of fur, but he's just out there, right? Doing his thing. But we have this structured society that is covered in pretense. And so you play along once you realize it's all foolishness and it's absurd. So once you overcome the illusion, you're still in the game. You're still local. You're a bag of skin. You perceive yourself to be a bag of skin, but you know better. That's the difference. So you're satisfied being out in nature, completely exposed to the elements and just being yourself, and woohoo. How do you make decisions? Well, you begin to see how structured society, the first pretense or the first barrier of fear is cost. And if you were to say all right, I'm going to find a place to live. The first filter on vacation rental by owner and Airbnb and even a real estate agent will talk about what can you afford. That's the first barrier that structured society is. So you tell me what you're comfortable with. And that's how we base our decisions. What's in my bank account is what I'm comfortable with. But you see, once you start to align with the spirit, you realize, okay, I can live anywhere. I can live in a cardboard box. I'd probably be okay. I'd migrate to a warmer climate in the wintertime. But it all comes down to how do we make decisions then if we have been used to just being afraid and worried. It just comes down to simple preference. What do you prefer? And you stop searching for price and searching for a lifestyle. What suits you as a human? And that's what true wealth is. It's selectivity. Now, the way we see wealth is greed, right? Spiritual freedom is really a vow of poverty, and a lot of us don't understand what a vow of poverty is. Vow of poverty is hand selecting what suits your preference, and it's not a must-have. So when you're already full, how can there be a must-have? If your existence is fulfilling, who could ask for anything more? Think of it this way. If you're always starving, you'll eat anything somebody puts in front of you. Let's let that sink in. You are absolutely starving. You would probably eat God knows what. And that's what the ego is. A constant craving that will consume anything put in front of it. Because it's starving all the time. But when you starve the ego, don't let yourself be fidgety, reactive. Make yourself sit still. Don't give the ego what it wants. Literally, choke it. We do that with animals. If you've ever trained a dog, you make the dog sit still. You may not have. My little dog, she's as sweet as she can be. She wants to clobber people when they come to the front door. And just literally, she would wrestle them to the ground and lick them to death. She is starving for affection. And I give her affection all the time. But she has to learn she can get what she wants if she's calm and submissive. So we've been working with my friends when they come over. I said, ring the doorbell. We're going to stand there with the leash. I don't let her maul. I don't let her attack the guests. Her ego is craving just whatever she wants. So we have to tame her. We have to domesticate her. We have to make her play by the rules. So you can do that with your own ego. Your ego wants to maul the guests, wants to eat all the chips, wants to have all the money, and wants to win all the lotteries, and wants to be right all the time. You want to tame that. By making yourself sit down. The problem is the ego believes sitting down is a problem. Sitting down and not doing anything is a problem. There was a study where people were asked to sit in a room by themselves, and there was a device in the room where they could shock themselves as entertainment. So you can go in the room and either sit there quietly with your own thoughts, or you could literally hurt yourself. And 67% of all men, or something upwards of 70% of men, prefer to hurt themselves than to sit quietly. Now, see, now that tells us something about the insidious nature of the human animal, which is what the ego is. It's the animalistic nature. Nothing wrong with it. It's just what we are. But you transcend that survival brain and that fear, and you realize, well, it's kind of dumb to hurt myself. I think sitting with my thoughts are not so bad. Until you've learned to sit with your thoughts and actually enjoy being alone and being quiet. You realize there's a certain satisfaction to just being. And so you learn to be, and as you learn to be, you realize, oh, it's a pleasant experience to just be. I don't have to be doing. I can be. And there's a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment in that. But you still have to eat. And so now you recognize the dual purpose of life. So eating is a survival mechanism. Just gobbling it up, right? We got to eat. We got to stay surviving. But if you have a baseline satisfaction of satiation, homeostasis, centeredness, and fulfillment, yes, we can eat, but we can get into the higher purposes of eating, which is simply to sense. So the ego is to sense and to taste and to smell and to hear. But it has a tendency to pretense, to pretend that life is about survival. So once you get past the taming process and you start to domesticate yourself, you still want to eat, but you eat in moderation. You eat because it tastes lovely. You're not craving and starving all the time because you've tamed yourself. You realize you're all right. And you begin to sense. You hear better, you see better, you sense. And then you pre-sense. Pre-sense, or presence. And you realize that consciousness is simply an awareness that something is about to happen. And you are either afraid of what's about to happen, or you are just delightfully anticipatory. And so when you make decisions from a place of fulfillment, you get into the dual purpose of the physical world, that it's simply for your enjoyment. So then you have, when you go look for a place to live, cost isn't a factor. But also, why would somebody like me want an 18-room mansion? If I really wanted an 18-room mansion, that's what I would go for. But I don't want that. You become more selective. So you become spiritual You just realize you're everywhere and you're timeless. And you dwell in that, and that's so satisfying. And you return back to playing the character. Get back into the costume. Play along. Except this time you're pre-sensing, and you're not scared of it. And you're not bound by fear anymore. So your decisions are, well, for the hell of it. Oh, I like that. I'd like to live in a place with a swimming pool. I'd like to have 4 bedrooms. I'd like to have a Steinway grand piano. Whatever it could. But I don't have to now. I'm not craving anymore. That's just a luxury. So all the toys and the additive things and the fun things and the what I call the goodies are secondary to being fulfilled, satisfied, and not afraid. And you create things just for the frivolity of it. My videos are just froth, complete froth, cream. There's really I'm not really talking about anything. I do it because I like doing it. I dig it. So that's how you make decisions once you overcome fear. It's just fun. And you want to say, hey, take off all those filters. Don't search by cost. Search your heart. And when you search your heart, you'll realize everything you thought you wanted and needed, you have already. That's the ultimate realization. That you don't need anything. And now you can get into the sensual pleasures of life without overindulging, but restricting and restraining in the right ways. So that you hand select based on your desires. And your desires are miniature forms of what you want. It's already there. The desire itself means, the means comes with it. It's all there. And then you have this wonderful ease of life because your desires are selected for you. Your choices are selected for you. And you realize you've been led the whole time. And the ego was leading you on. So there's no more starving, craving ego that can't be satisfied. It's thinned out. You choked it off by sitting there and taming yourself. Domesticating yourself. Becoming a soft, loving, naked individual that simply needs a loincloth to avoid indecent exposure. But every human is as exposed and vulnerable as the next. That's why practicing constant forgiveness is so very important and vital to our survival. We're just big kids learning to parent ourselves, learning to restrict ourselves, and realizing you can't get away from your karma. The future ramifications will come back. They might bite you in the ass. But if not now, when? If not who, then who? If not me, then who? This is the liberation. You're liberated, but you still have to make decisions, but you make decisions without fear of what comes back. The outcome is secondary to that which lives frivolously in the world. My name is Ryan. I hope that these insights were helpful to you and that you'll check back often in this channel. Please check out my blog, mymorningmotivator.com, or one of my books on Amazon. And we'll see you next time.